Thanks for staying with us. You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. As I told you from the top, we are continuing to explore all angles to the conversation around the demand for an improved minimum wage for Nigerian workers. How can the realization of this demand help Nigeria's effort as rejuvenating a distressed economy? We have joining us now from our Abuja studio, Honorable Oghene Egor, a former member of the House of Representatives. Good morning, Honorable Egor. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be around.
Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk minimum wage. Yeah. Let's talk Nigeria's reality. Let's talk Nigeria's economy. I'm sure that you've been following all the development. 62,000 reportedly being proposed by the federal government. But of course, the governors saying that they are not even able to pay up to 60,000. The Labour insisting that if they will accept anything at all, it won't be lower than 250,000. What is your assessment of all the issues surrounding the minimum wage imbroglio in Nigeria, if I may say?
Well, thank you for having me. Let me say that, first of all, let me thank Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for providing a good atmosphere for the negotiation. You know, he called the labor to say, let's negotiate new salary as a minimum wage. And it's part of the fact that the discussions have continued to have hiccup. The executive arm of government have been open. They've continued to call the workers to come for further discussion to reach an amicable settlement. I want to say that the problem in reaching an amicable settlement is not from the federal government or the presidency. The president is very willing to ensure that the workers get what is their due. But the problem we have, like you rightly said, are the governors, not only that, but the private sector, organized private sector. And especially that's where it surprises me. Because the organized private sector should know that if workers are not paid a good wage, there will be no demand for their products. You have a lot of companies exiting Nigeria in recent time. Why did they exit Nigeria? They talk about two things. The first one is low demand. Manufacturers manufacture goods, warehouses are freed up, nobody to buy these goods. So what is the cause of that? Because level of income is too low. So if salaries go up well, it is in the interest of the organized private sector, manufacturers. Now, it may affect their payroll initially. Maybe their payroll may go up by 20 or 30, even 100%. But at the end of the day, when a good income is paid to Nigerian workers, you find out that the turnover of these companies can increase by several folds. In other words, an organization that was selling 10 million naira before, because of the new increase at the new demand level, they can be selling 100 million. So turnover is very important. And if a company wants to come to Nigeria, a foreign firm wants to come to Nigeria to set up, to manufacture, the first thing they will look at is what is the minimum wage. If they look at the minimum wage that, this per any less than $1 per day or $2 per day, they will say, no need to go there because they don't have capacity to buy produced goods. So my appeal to organized labor is to encourage the governors to agree to a good minimum wage. Let the organized private sector encourage them, because at the end of the day, a good minimum wage is going to benefit the organized private sector more than anybody, because there will be demand. For instance, the president set up a thrift system recently, which was very good, part of the Renew Hope agenda of Mr. President, which I commend. But the question is, how many workers can buy a medium-sized television? Even a deputy director, take him 9 months to pay for it. Not to talk about people who are level 10, level 8, or minimum wage. So at the end of the day, there's no demand. Even vehicles, people who are doing transportation, you find out that a lot of workers would rather prefer to trek for about 3-4 kilometers rather than entering the vehicle. So there's no demand. Demand is low, and the economy is not growing. If you look at Jonathan's time, Nigeria economy was growing at about 7%, 6% per annum. That was when we became the biggest economy in Africa. If we had continued like that, we probably could be something would have grown close to where countries like India, countries like Philippines, South Africa are. But because wage is so low, we failed. Before 2011, the minimum wage was 7,000 naira per person. But Jonathan increased it to 18%. It is when it was increased to 18% that manufacturers started getting more profit because demand surged and foreign companies started coming in. But they are packing up to go back now. Company wage is low. And then coming to the governors, my appeal to the governor is that they should behave like Mr. President and be more interested in the economic growth of the country. If you look at recent report, I'm not saying that they are correct, but EFCC from governors are saying, president governors are saying that their predecessor, some stole 80 billion naira, some stole 100 billion naira. From Kaduna, we are hearing that a former governor took 430 billion naira from state coffers. Less than 1/10 of that money is enough to pay all the workers. So if governors don't pay workers well, there'll be a lot of money available for stealing. It will not be the governors that I'm saying are stealing it. But different workers will find a way to steal to help themselves. A worker who is not earning enough knows that he must look for transport to go home. He will do funny things in the office. He will hide files, even if it's in the private sector and he's a driver. He will make sure he steals his master's fuel. He will make sure he takes the vehicle to mechanic. When he goes to mechanic, he will beg the mechanic, please, they are not paying me well. Remove so part, brand new part, sell it, put the coupon part, and then we'll come back again. So when you don't pay your workers well, it's yourself you are deceiving. So my appeal to the governors, pay your workers well. There's a governor who is already paying 70,000 minimum wage. And this week he came out to say that they've done their calculation, they'll be able to pay it. I can tell you for free that if minimum wage had remained at 30,000 and Edo State is paying 70,000, most industries will go to Edo State because that is where the demand will be. The economy cannot grow unless there's enough demand. So when you are paying the government workers a high minimum wage or a reasonable minimum wage, you are not doing them a favor. Rather, you are doing the economy a favor. So my advice to governors and the private sector is that especially, I'm surprised because the private sector, they are supposed to have economists, I'm a management economist. They are supposed to have economists to tell them that if minimum wage is so low, the private sector is doomed. Somebody was saying yesterday that, I have a poultry. If minimum wage goes up, it shows I have to increase the price of my product. Yes, increase the price of your product. But I can tell you that the double demand that will come in will be such that the increase the person will have in his product will not be as much as the demand that will come in. So the extra demand will make that poultry farmer make more money. It will apply to every area because the kind of wages paid in Nigeria today is a sickening wage. I'm not sure there's any country in the world that is paying the kind of wage Nigeria is paying. And that is because since 2011, when Jonathan moved from 7 to 18,000, and then later on they moved it to 30,000, it was still all right. But since then, look at dollar, what has of 400?
Okay,
look at the price of fuel. How can the worker end that? So you will now have workers who are disgruntled, who will not be able to do anything either for government or private sector. So my appeal is, look at it realistically. I'm not saying give any amount of this, but my appeal to labor too Narrow down your differences with government. Narrow down so that you can reach a consensus. And reaching a consensus is good for the economy because the economy can now grow because there's demand. You can see a lot of companies are exiting Nigeria. You know, even big supermarkets, ShopRite and co. So Nigeria had to try to buy it over. If demand was heavy, and one reason they gave why they wanted to exit Nigeria is because the demand is not enough. People go to ShopRite and you just walk up and down, you buy sweet. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to come in here because we also have a second guest joining us, Mr. Shitu Mohammed, who is an investor in the private sector. And I would like to bring you into this conversation when we look at the role of the increased minimum wage in resuscitating Nigeria's economy. When we look at productivity in itself, do you think that a higher minimum wage can realistically drive economic recovery? And then if you put that side by side with government flexibilities on their flexibility and on their policies, with the ongoing negotiations, what level of flexibility should the federal government show? We saw that 60,000 coming back with 62,000, setting a new minimum wage to ensure that it benefits both the workers and the economy. How do you think that the federal government should respond, Mr. Shitu?
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, my brother and sister. For us in the private sector, if you look at the increase in the wages, it is not a problem. You can increase to 600, you can increase to 500, you can increase to 250, you can come to 100. It's not a problem. But we must now go into nitty-gritty. We are not producing country. We are consuming country. How do we get ourselves to the level? In 1960, at 61, in Kuwait, dinar was $1 to 1 dinar. Nigerian naira almost the same, 1 naira. Up till date, Kuwait remained the greatest, biggest, and most lucrative country, and their currency remained that one dinar to $1. In fact, not is surpassing dollar. Where we got it wrong, we have the same economy with Kuwait, which is oil and gas. Kuwait did not go for debt. They don't take debt, and they reduce their tax, and their economy remain very strong. People look for dinar more than looking for dollar in the Middle East. Go back to China. China is the cheapest in terms of labor, which is worker. Now, if you look how China got there, and today, China is now becoming the hubs of industrialization. It is, because if everything that was in US, they go now, they are the manufacturers of the world because they are low. And what take them there is that they believe that if we are 10 in a family, and one of us in a family gets 10,000 naira per month, and he has to share it with that 9 other people, which is happening in Nigeria, where will 10,000 take that person to? But if we have 10,000, and you have 10 family, and 10 of them have employment, that means that family has 100,000. That is how they took themselves very cheap because of their population, which we also have population. Because of that, you find that the economy of China start booming. In 50 years, they became second largest economy. Nigerian, we have to now look at where do we get it wrong. During Shagari at 1981, we increased the salary from 1 to 125, which is then $1.61. Now in 1991, we changed to 250. Then in 2000, it was 5,500. In 2011, we go to 18,900. In 2019, we go to 30,000. Today, we are now talking of a new figure. Has it helped us? The answer is no. Why? Because we are not producing. We have to start, we must first of all make sure that we bring up, we support industrialization. And we are not. We have been since 2007. I believe that even the crew of this particular went to my farm. And up to today, there was no improvement because we are not, even if you produce, they are not supporting industrialization. If you support industrialization, no state in Nigeria that cannot pay, even if it is 500,000, you are paying the workers. No state that doesn't have one mineral or the other. Either solid mineral, either agricultural resources, they are everywhere. So each state can pay, but are we ready to push our people into productivity? We are not producing as a country, we are consuming. Even if we've I set up factory, as I'm talking to you today, we could not even run it. Because even if you produce, who buys? And if they are buying, you cannot compete with imported goods. So we now have to look at the why. Why do we get ourselves to where we are getting to before we destroy the country? It's not about how much you are paying the workers, but how well will you do in paying those workers? Industrialization is what we must face. Paying is not let states start looking at each of their state. If you go to Zamfara, they have gold. If you come to Niger State, we have agriculture. If you get to Oyo State, they have cocoa. If you get to Lagos State, you can go to the high sea and be able to get fish, you get other aquatic resources. What are we doing about it? We are not doing anything. It's the foreigners that come to our high sea and took our fish, took our shrimps, took everything, and then sell it back to Nigeria in dollar. Then we go back to take debt to pay workers. How do you grow your economy in that way? Nigeria must come together. Today, look, we are here because Chief Nduka will not be able to put this place together. If we don't have this place, I won't have mouth to talk to anybody. So, are you supporting him as government? Are we giving him enabling environment? Can our bank finance you with under 1%? You're going to take loan at 30%, 25%. So we are not growing the country.
Yes, Mr.
We should, as people, now look at how we sit down and industrialize the country instead of putting ourselves in. Because even if you said they should go and pay this money, because they are not producing in their state, they are not using the state resources to go and then invest and be able to tap into the mineral resources or agricultural resources.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that you brought up the interest rates. We should, as people, be serious. Yes, sir. I appreciate that you brought up the interest rates because it is speaking to the current state of our economy. When interest is really high, when inflation is really high, then we would need to increase our wages in order to protect the lowest rung of the society. But I want to ask this question to Honorable Egor because earlier on you did thank the president for holding these negotiations. However, do you disagree with those who said that it's a little late, knowing that the president knew that the minimum wage was going to expire and he did not instruct his minister to come up with a template until after the expiration of the minimum wage? And as a former member of the National Assembly, are you expecting the National Assembly to pass a bill on this minimum wage as quickly as they did for the national anthem?
Yes, I think so. Mr. President is interested in that. That's why you see each time there's a breakdown of the negotiation between Labour and the government side, the president have always ordered executive arm to meet with them. There was even a weekend that the Senate President, the Speaker of the House, and Secretary to Government Saturday and Sunday, went to negotiate with workers. So it shows that the presidency is serious. I agree with some of the things that my colleague have said. You manufacture, nobody to buy them. Because there's no money in the workers' pocket. Some of the things said are correct. Interest rate, government supporting investment, etc., etc. South Korea and Nigeria in 1962, we are on the same level. But they supported manufacturing. As in 1961, the Saudi Arabia royal family, they come to University of Ibadan, teaching hospital for treatment. The Saudi Arabia family. Today, Nigerians are going to Saudi Arabia. So we are not really supporting our people. We are not looking inward. But the issue we are talking about now is how can the economy be rebooted? How can manufacturers come into the country? How can manufacturers manufacture and sell their goods easily? Because Nigerian workers, government and private sector, there are about 70 million people. If these 70 million people are earning a good wage, of course, they will be able to demand. And a foreign investor coming in, when you see that the minimum wage is reasonable, you say, oh, if we manufacture here, there are people to buy our goods. But when they look at it that manufacturing firms, international firms in Nigeria, they are exiting the economy, they are going away because there's no demand. Warehouses are filled up with goods. What can you do? I would think that the organized private sector should have been the people to head this demand for increase in minimum wage. Because when they say an increase in minimum wage, the organized private sector will suffer because they will pay more. It's painful. But at the end of the day, the demand that will come will resuscitate their industry. That's why I gave an example. In 2011, Jonathan increased minimum wage from 7,000 to 18,000. And if you look at our economy in the last 40, 50 years, that's when we had the highest growth rate. 7%, 6%, 8%. We are one of the biggest economy growing in Africa. And foreign investors were coming in because Nigerians have capacity to buy this. But all that is gone now. At that time, the dollar was how much? 152. Today, the dollar, we know where it is. And the governors are not being sincere. Because if you look at FEC 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and FEC now, some governors who were getting 3 billion monthly for federation account, some are getting 9 billion now. Some who were getting the big oil producing states that were getting about 10, 11 billion. Some are getting 30-something billion. Go and look at it. So all this extra money, what are they doing with it? What are they doing with it? Right now, the wage bill of every state is a very small percentage compared to what they are getting. At the federation account level, the state governments are getting a lot of money. So let them have a spirit like the president has, that let the negotiation go on well, instead of just coming out to say, we cannot pay. All right. Those states pay 70,000 right now, and they are not complaining. So why are these governors behaving this way? And then the surprising thing is organized private sector that is supposed to support increase in wage so that they can sell their product here. Buy power of Nigeria can increase. The amount to say they cannot pay.
All right, Honorable Egor, let me...
that is the issue.
Okay, thank you. But let me bring Alhaji Shitu Mohammed back into the conversation for him to take off from what you just landed. Governors should not continue to say they can't pay. The Edo example. So my question to Alhaji Shitu Mohammed is, which direction do you think that the negotiations should take now? Because there are rumors that Labour might resume industrial action after Salah. Where do you think that the negotiation should go now that...
Sorry, I don't want Labour to resume industrial action.
Okay.
Let them reach agreement. Because industrial action can disrupt the economy. What I'm saying is that let organized labor and governors reach an agreement. We don't need another industrial action. The economy cannot afford it.
Do you have a figure in mind, Honorable Egor?
No, I don't have a figure in mind. But certainly there are 62,000 that governors are saying they cannot pay. I'm disappointed with the governors. You know, I know they can pay more than that, but I don't have a figure in mind. They can pay more than that.
All right, let's
reach a consensus.
All right.
For the interests of the Nigerian worker and the economy.
Okay, let's have the views of Alhaji Shitu Mohammed. I wanted you to comment on the initial thoughts expressed by Honorable Egor. What are your thoughts? Do you have a figure in mind? And what do you think that the direction should go now that it is imminent that, you know, a new round of negotiations, you know, will begin?
For us, we believe that the government and labor should now come into a middle way and resolve the matter. But even if you resolve this matter, what we are saying is that in order for Nigerians to be able, because how many people are even employed in the first place? You look at a family, 1 or 2 people are employed, all other 8 or 9 people are there milking within that little money that go. That's why you are having all these uprisings. So what government should do in the first place is to make sure that they look at productivity, they look at industrialization, they look at tapping at it, because we have been coming here, we've been talking for years, for not less than 20 years now, we have been saying industrialize, industrialize, industrialize. Even if you pay 500,000, so far we are importing our goods. Okay, now because dollar has gone to 1,000 to 1,005, that is why you see now those 30,000 as no more valuable. If the dollar now, if you pay 500,000 to workers and dollar go to 3,000, does that money valuable to workers? The value of that money is down. What we must do is to arrest this menace that is confronting us. What is that menace? What makes it that the demand for dollar is so high that we must go for dollar? We have to tackle that first. And it's what government can do in a minute if we are very sincere in government. With sincerity of government, what are we selling that we have to devalue our naira in the first place? We have no reason to devalue our naira. We are devaluing our naira for the betterment of those countries we are buying things for. If our refineries are working, if our textile industries are working, if our food industry, the way we are working, and if agriculture is working, will you need to import any goods? The answer is no. If today, if you produce and they took it to market, even if it is better than Nigeria, immediately they say it is imported. Nigerians go for that imported goods. Not that we don't have economic power or that. No, there's money. The people have but the people don't even buy Nigerian goods because they will tell you it's local. They will go for foreign goods. As I'm sitting here, all of us sitting here, and you, including you over there, all what is in our body is not manufactured in Nigeria.
Oh, sir,
you watch the shoe that it's not manufactured in Nigeria.
Oh no, not all of us, sir.
Even the cap, the clothes.
No,
even your clothes you wear, you must have wear watch. So you have either watch, some go and buy air from India, some.
Sir, I'd actually like to ask.
What we are saying.
Yes. I'd like to actually
we must bring down the dollar. We must be able to now start productivity to be able to pay. If not, the more the dollars go up, the more the demand.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to. I'd like to actually cut in here
for wages.
Thank you. I'd like to cut in here and just ask Honorable Egor, because earlier you spoke about the governors and you said that they can afford to pay more because Edo State, of course, is paying 70,000 naira as minimum wage. Yeah. However, 24 states, it's been reported that 24 states out of 36 cannot pay their wages without their FAC allocation. In 2020, it was only 3 states that could pay without FAC allocation. So when the governors say that they cannot afford to pay, do you think that they are misrepresenting their finances?
Yes. Because FAC allocation, everybody's seeing it. Some states got 38 billion. Those were states that were getting like 10 billion before. Some who were getting 2-3 billion, they are getting 15 billion. Check this year's FAC since Mr. President came in and the previous 3 years. When you check it, you see that the income going to the states have doubled almost 1,000%. So if the government say they cannot pay, it's not true. And if we look at the level of money being stolen and wasted in the states, right? This money is more than enough to clear whatever amount they are going to agree upon. But I also agree with Mr. Shitu that the economy needs to be rejigged. I mean, those of us who were alive when Michelin and Dunlop was in Nigeria, Nigeria has one of the best rubber. People were tapping rubber. Michelin and Dunlop were providing, and they were manufacturing tires. But what happened? Government increased the exercise duty on Michelin and Dunlop, and then you reduce the import duty on the imported goods. So Michelin and Dunlop could not sell. They had to pack away. Even outside battery, they were manufacturing in Newi, they were manufacturing in Ibadan. It was the same thing that happened. You reduce duty on imported battery, and then you increase excise duty on manufactured goods, manufactured batteries. It is like that in all the economy. You know, we have here in Bauchi and other, these were making vehicles at that time for agricultural products and others. The goods that were being imported, you made them cheaper to import. And then manufactured goods, you made it more expensive by increasing excise duty. So government needs to look at all this. Government also needs to tell the private sector, so goods, we give you 3 or 2 years. After that, we ban them. It would now encourage those who are manufacturing here to approach their foreign partner to come and manufacture here. We used to have Nezi Bank in those days. Nezi Bank provides money for manufacturers, loan at interest rate as low as 3, 4, 5%. Like Alaji said, when you borrow money at 23%, 80%, how are you going to pay back? How do you use that money to set up? How do you pay back? So government needs to look at the interest rate too and encourage manufacturers. Even duty drawback. If you manufacture things and you can export some of it, whatever duty you use in bringing your raw material, everything, it's refunded to you. So after this negotiation, when the salaries have been agreed upon, government need to sit down with the organized private sector to see what we can do. It's not rocket science. Some people to go and read the history of Kuwait, like my colleague here said. South Korea, even India, that is growing so rapidly. China, you know. So when you look at all that, let's see what they did. And then even if decision is painful, we take it. We know Mr. President for taking decisions. Even if they are painful, he knows that at the end of the day, it's better for Nigerians. So we need to do all that. Because at the end of the day, when we increase salary and the economy is not doing well, we are not getting dollar. The dollar will continue to scatter. But let me say one further thing, that at the state level, if they don't pay good wages, I can tell Nigeria for free that a lot of the money go to the state will end up in the pocket of some people, directors, these politicians, and that kind of thing. When that money ends up, the politician or the director or whoever ends up in the pocket will take his children abroad for school, will travel abroad for holidays. Meanwhile, those money will go abroad. It's not available to buy goods in Nigeria. If he wants to buy it, he will go and buy a car for 130 million naira. You know, meanwhile, Indonesia Motor is manufacturing right there in Inewi. In Lagos State, there are some local assembly, but he won't buy that one. And that is because there will be excess money in the hands of the state governors. And they will not be governors forever. Let them know that one day they will stop being governors, and then they will see the stark reality of what is happening. So Nigeria, the minimum wage needs to be increased. It needs to be increased for demand, not because we want to help the worker. For the workers to be able to have a demand. When you increase it, Nigerian manufacturer will say, okay, people are coming to ask. For instance, the textile industry, like he said, all of us here are wearing foreign goods, except me that's wearing a local cap. You know? So what will happen is the textile industry need to be revived. It's not rocket science. It's possible. Government need to sit down after this wage increase to work on that issue with the organized private sector. But for the organized private sector to start wasting their time, don't increase wages, we cannot pay. If they don't pay, then at the end of the day, let all your goods get rotted in your warehouse. Nobody to buy them. You can't make money too, you know. For instance, even if it's a hotel you build, people will not have enough money to enter because the whole money is in very few hands. So you need to spread it. You need to spread it. So my appeal to the private sector and the governor is to emulate what Mr. President is doing. You know, reach an agreement with the workers. And it will be better for the entire economy. Then we go to see how we can fix the economy.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Egor. I'm going to just bring in Alhaji Shittu to talk about how best we can support the workforce beyond wage increases. We've spoken about productivity, but what other measures should be taken to improve the welfare of Nigerian workers to stimulate economic growth? What can be done outside of just increasing, when we look at the private sector? I'd like you to just touch on this very briefly, Alhaji, and then we can come back to Honorable Egor.
Look at the private sector. What is killing our private sector is first the levy, the tax that imposed. And I'll give myself as an example. I have a mill, and I'm milling flour. And then within 1 year, I have to pay taxes to local government. I have to pay taxes to federal and land revenue. I have to pay for advert, for my what they call premises. You have to pay for emission. You have to pay. In a year, I'm paying about 4 to 5 million. You see, that kill is better for me to have taken that money and import. That is why we cannot, the private sector cannot compete with foreign goods, because they come in, they just come to your border, pay your custom and go, and come to the market and sell. So they don't pay for premises, they don't pay for anything, they don't impose tax on them. Secondly, you cannot access fund through any bank. Even if you are going to, the least you can get is 9 to 10, which is single digit with government banks, 2 or 3 banks. Thirdly, we must also look at how do you stabilize the country's tax regime. Especially, why going for debt? Why allowing taking debt from the foreign countries? Why can't we look at inwards? And then, because those countries that you see develop, China refused to take debt until after about 30 years when they have developed. They refused to take any debt. They reduced their taxes to the minimum level. And that's why the wages was so low. Because you are not paying, even if you are paying our workers now, you still tax them. You take tax. That money, how much do they take home? Then they get home. So far, there's no employment opportunities. Because when you reduce all these costs, then industry will boom. You employ people will not even want to go for white collar job. They will prefer to work in the factories until we make Nigerian a factory hub. But if we are looking at up to down there, what measure do we take as the workers as this to make sure, because it's the same worker that signed that billions that they siphon and go and buy dollar. It's the same workers. So why can't we find a system? Because those are what is bringing this thing, a heavy burden on our reserves. And that is why they are crying today that they can pay. If any governor in each of the state, if you go to Imo now, you have Adapam, which I know that governor is trying to if you revamp Adapam, how many months it will take? If you go back to Ondo State and you are able to revamp cocoa, you think that governor will not pay? If you come to Nasarawa and you are able to now, in fact, if you look at lithium, how it's selling in the world, Nigerian owners fall, the price has fallen because it is come for all. There's no our governor should look in that way so that they can employ. If in a family you are 10 and 6 are employed, who cares? Nobody will care. But you see one person in a family is the breadwinner. You see 2 people in a family, they are the breadwinner. We must curb this. We must give employment opportunity to our teeming youth. If everybody is employed, we won't have all this agitation. And then if our government should also stop taking debt, stop taking taxing, and then we wake up in the morning, you heard Nigerian custom are saying that we have got 500 billion. Where do they get it from? From importation. That means we are encouraging importation. So we must stop importation. If we can stop importation, you can just minimize until what is necessary for us to import. We'll have enough money to pay our workers. All this they are crying is because there is none. And you must pay your salary and wages. If you pay, then people has a power to buy. But if you don't pay, where would they get it? And then if you tax those factories, how do they grow? So there are a lot of things. If you are talking of insurgency, we gave for you to you can now start clustering farmers. And when you cluster farmers, you give them firepower. The military will be there. And then will any insurgent or people go to where you have about 500 to 1 million people cultivating in a farm? They can't go there. There are systems where we are killing the country, killing ourselves. And this is the last moment we are today. And I'm not predicting doom. If you don't look at what we are saying now, as government and our people, we are going to kill this country. Because as I'm talking to you, in just last 2, 3, 4 days, I've known people that have left, are now closing their factory. Even for Chief Nduka Obebuna to maintain here, you know how much he will pay for electricity? You know how much you pay for this? Then you are now talking of... So there are a lot of burden on investors that are in Nigeria. And if investors are coming to your country and you are so much putting tax and all that in and this, how will he come? He will manufacture in his country and give it to you and sell it to you and pay your custom. And in a year, a custom will tell you we are getting 10 trillion. And we will be happy and clapping. We don't know, we are killing ourselves. So until all these measures are taken, in a nutshell, 2 measures must be taken. Reduce your taxes on industries. Make sure that industries get access to fund. Even if it's at that 9 single digit.
Okay.
I think central bank should sit down now and look at all these taxes and this, and look at the lending rate and come down in order for us to build our country back under this administration. If not, I'm not calling for doom, but we must rise. As I rise where I am, Nigeria should rise.
All right. Thank you, Alhaji Shitu.
Can I come in briefly?
Yes, you can come in briefly. But okay.
Can I come in briefly?
Yes, go on, Honorable Egor.
Yeah, okay. Now, yeah, I agree with Shitu in a lot of the things he has said. One of it is taxation. All over the world, industries, investment go to where tax is the lowest. If you look at even Europe, you know, Ireland have reduced their tax so much. They are the greatest growing economy in Europe right now. In America, there is so much money. Our factories, investment, they are looking for areas where the tax is minimum, tax is lowest. So Nigeria can cut their taxes to half. Now the money we will get will be low. But if more investment come, volume of users, because more investment will come in, the volume that will come, it will increase what we are making. So let's look at volume rather than just taxing everybody to death. So on the issue of taxation, it should be done. The government must sit down with all the states. You know, how did Ahmadu Bello run the north and build Ahmadu Bello University? How did Awolowo run the southwest and they built Cocoa House and the first television and did free education? How did Zik run the east that he had University of Usuka? It was through produce. Look at Delta, for instance. There's so much rubber in the bush, but it's all dead. Nobody's tapping rubber, you know, because money is coming from federation account. So we must look at the NEPA too. Federal government must hasten up activity of NEPA so that no person goes to go and buy generator and also go and waste money to buy diesel. A lot of factories have closed down, like Yeshitu said. Some of my friends are suffering it. So they must work on electricity. And then government must sit down. How come our competitors who manufacture, they pay 2%, 5% interest rate in their banks? We are paying 20-30%. They must sit down to work on all this. I'm sure, Mr. President, look at all this. You know, it will help us. But the bottom limit is that the salaries that are paid now, even if you do all this we are talking about, without increasing the salary, foreign investors will not come up. There must be a minimum base where foreign investors say, with this minimum, you know, Nigerians will be willing to work if they come in. With this minimum, if we have goods in Nigeria, manufactured goods, there will be a market for them. All that, everything must be done holistically.
All right, Honorable Egor.
So that is my take on that.
Thank you so much. But as we begin to wrap up, I just want your thoughts on the fact that a few people might think that your pro-workers stance, is it as a result of the fact that you have a trade union background? But given the fact that you are also, you know, of the political class, which a lot of people are saying, you know, is responsible for the reasons why workers are not being paid well. What is your position?
Well,
okay.
Yeah, well, I have, yes. When I worked in the bank so many years ago, I was the organizing secretary of ASBIFI, Association of Banks and Insurance Workers Association and Insurance, you know. And I worked in an insurance company. I was the organizing secretary. So I have a union background. But that is not all. I'm also a politician. Right now, I'm of the APC extraction because I've keyed into the Renew Hope agenda of Mr. President. But what I'm saying is that it is in the interest of industrialists, the organized private sector, the people I'm pitying, the organized private sector, if they think that by not paying workers, then they will make profits, they are wasting their time. Rather, pay workers well, let there be higher demand so that the inventory will not, all their goods will not be rotting away in the warehouse. Once the manufacturers know that once you manufacture something, there are people to buy it immediately. Of course, they will manufacture, you know. But when you say, oh, you cannot pay, let me save money with salary. At the end of the day, 70 million Nigerians cannot come to your shop, cannot come to your warehouse, cannot buy the things you are distributing. What is the sense in it? What is this? Like, if you have a fast food, and then at the end of the day, it's only 30 people that come in every day because the salary people are earning is so low. But if you have a fast food and you are paying higher, and 500 people can enter your fast food in a day to buy things, of course, turnover will be higher, your cost will be reduced. So whatever salary you are paying, you are happy, you smile to the bank. So the organized private sector should come together and speak to the governors because it is in their own interest. They just, I don't know why they cannot understand this simple economics. That If Nigerian workers earn good money or any reasonable amount, they will be able to buy more. I'm not buying into what Nigerian Labour Congress is saying, 440. Even the 250 they are talking about, I think it's too high, but I'm not talking about figure. But I think that they should narrow their differences. But organized labor, their reason should not be, don't pay more, so we don't pay more salary. If you don't pay more salary, you don't have people to patronize you, then you will close up one day. We need demand, capacity to demand. Right now, capacity to demand in Nigeria is very, very low. Even the farmer that is coming from the bush, we know their prices have gone up because of bandits disturbing them and because of price of petrol and other things. But when they bring the goods out and you don't have people who can buy the goods, the tomato will get rotten. The pepper will get rotten. Even the okra, it will get rotten. So there's need for a reasonable salary so that workers can go and buy what is produced by farmers. So even if farmers increase their prices, by the time the workers are able to demand it, the farmers cannot go back to the bush. Nobody will go into farming if you know that the goods you buy, there are no people to buy them.
Yes, sorry.
So people who are using
describing not inflation. What you're describing, will that not lead to an increase in inflation? That's one of the things the private sector has been speaking about. If people if there's more money in the system, there'll be rising inflation. You don't agree?
No. The private sector is wrong. What we are talking about, we are not talking about the monies, pay workers money that will bring inflation. We are saying pay workers a minimum for them to be able to demand, to be able to buy. If we go for the 540 or 400,000 that Labour was talking about, then you can be talking about inflation. But if you are talking about a fee of, let's say, 100,000, how is it going to bring inflation? Because the worker who used to buy tomato to cook before, they stopped using tomato. They just use pepper. They don't care about the taste of the food. How many workers can buy milk right now? None. They cannot buy it. Most women have resorted to using their breast to feed their children. Well, doctors say it's healthier. But support with Sri Lanka and other things. But nobody can do it. We're just talking about pay minimum salary that can enable workers to buy something. We are not saying pay so that inflation will come out. If manufacturers are able to sell the goods they have in their warehouse, that is not inflation. So I think that the manufacturers need to come together to think, what do you think is the minimum you can pay that will not bring inflation? Right now, there is serious deflation. Talk to workers. When workers have to trek to avoid taking vehicle, so that they can, when they get to the office, they are tired, they are sweaty. Most workers now, they find a way to steal from their employers just to the minimum, just to maintain themselves. A lot of people can't even send their children to school anymore. We're not talking about taking children abroad. That's for the serious elite. But we're talking about the ordinary person. So when we're talking about inflation, what we have now is serious deflation. And that's why manufacturers are complaining that there's so much goods what they manufacture, nobody to buy it. People are not buying because there's no money in the pocket of people to buy it. The few big rich people or government officials who steal government money, they have only one mouth and only their family to feed.
All right.
But surrounding them are thousands of people who can't feed their family. So this is the point I'm making.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Honorable Oghene Egor. We appreciate you. Of course, as well, Alhaji Shitu Mohammed, thank you for your time and analysis today on The Morning Show.